Okay, so
Okay.
um, it's been, we've been trying to put this together for a while. I'm trying to get you on here to talk
Right.
about one of these coaching insights. So yeah, tell me what you because we're talking about discomfort of growth. So tell me what you thought about it.
Well, the first thing I'd say is just thinking about growth in general. I think you have to be uncomfortable to grow. So I don't. I think that if you're not uncomfortable, or if you don't have some discomfort, then you're not really growing. So that's one of the
Right.
first things that I think about when I read discomfort of growth as a topic. That you wanted to discuss. So, and I know that every time that I feel like I've made strides in my own growth, whether that was professionally or personally, I was uncomfortable, in those times. So that's really kind of my thought process or my thoughts about that topic or about the topic, kind of generally.
Right. Right. So does it, so for you personally, does growth feel, I mean, you say uncomfortable, but is it unsettling, or you? I guess it's kind of like, are you comfortable in discomfort, and that makes growth easy for you, or is that not you? You actually find that when you're sitting in that discomfort, it is kind of unsettling. Like, oh crap, I don't know how to deal with this.
I will say, as a younger person, I was uncomfortable in discomfort,
Right. Right.
or doing new things, which is when you grow, right? I was
Yep.
uncomfortable, and I actually consciously made a decision to put myself repeatedly in uncomfortable growth situations or doing things that I hadn't done before, which is when I felt like I was growing, and um, when I was uncomfortable. And what that translated into for me was when I was active duty, just volunteering for everything. I would volunteer for anytime somebody came in, at least the shop that I worked in, they would always just come in and say, I need volunteers. And they wouldn't tell you what it was for.
Mm.
So I would always volunteer. And sometimes, you got some not exciting jobs out of that. And sometimes,
Yeah.
like one time, we had the pro super walk in, and he said, "Hey, I need two volunteers," and I raised my hand immediately, and he said, "Okay." He said, "Go get a passport. You're going uh, over to Switzerland." We ended up not going,
Oh,
but
bummer.
unfortunately, but
Yeah.
yeah, but you know, I just made a conscious decision to put myself in uncomfortable situations. So I will say now, I am comfortable in discomfort. I like
Okay.
doing new things and learning new things, and you know, taking the opportunity to travel and go to classes and leadership classes and things like that. So I actually do enjoy doing new things now, and that really expands um, you as a person across the board, really.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I can hear somebody or almost envision somebody watching this and saying like that's a complete oxymoron to be comfortable in discomfort.
Yeah.
So I wonder if even crafting it a different way, like I totally I know what you're talking about. I totally agree with you. Like it's almost like I'm cool with change. I'm cool with I don't shy away from it. And I wonder too sometimes if it's less about being comfortable in discomfort as much as it is awareness of what discomfort is. Like you're sitting into discomfort and you're fully aware of your lack of comfort, right? Like, oh crap, I'm here now. I'm doing something that I'm not used to. I'm aware of what's happening to me, and I'm aware of this being a learning opportunity, a growth opportunity. And I wonder if sometimes we think of it. No, I know I do. Like I try not to say like comfortable in discomfort because that does sound like that's ridiculous. Why would you say that, right? I get it. I understand the notion completely, but then I think of it as just an awareness of my discomfort. I'm fully aware that this is happening to me right now, and I've got to learn from this. So I think sometimes that's one part that people miss when they are going through growth and they're dealing with that discomfort is they're not so aware of what's happening to them that they're asking really good questions about how can I grow in this, what am I learning from this, and they wait until it's over, and then they have to think back to, okay, what did I learn from this, where was the discomfort, where was the growth, as opposed to what it sounds like you're doing. And what I also find myself doing is I'm actually like living in it now, and as these, and I'm so aware of how uncomfortable I am that I'm growing as I'm going through it, and as opposed to at the very end. So I wonder if that would be beneficial for people to start thinking more about too, is not just being comfortable in discomfort, but being aware of it while you're going through. that discomfort. Yes, I am very uncomfortable right now, but I'm learning from it. So that's a good thing. Um, I wonder how much, and this is one of the questions that I would ask somebody if I was coaching them would be like, uh, what what would kind of like the next level you um, tell you to keep going. So, um, what do you think about that question? Like, I'm not necessarily asking you to answer that question as it relates to any kind of level of your discomfort, but if what would the next level you tell you to keep going through that discomfort? What do you think about that question? You think it's what do you think about it?
I think it sounds to me like what you're trying to ask the individual is, or what you would be asking the individual is, what do you want to get out of, a growth opportunity, or what might be holding
Okay.
you back from a growth opportunity? Um, you know, if I'm thinking in context of why you might ask that question, and I mean, I think it's relevant to ask what does the next level you look like, but I think I think the more important thing to focus on is what are you going to get out of, what can you challenge yourself with, and what do you want to get out of it, you
Okay.
know so I know that, I love leadership, and so that's one of the things that I always focus on is, how can I improve and grow my leadership, because I want to be a better leader. So that's always what I'm looking to get out of uncomfortable situations. And I think what drives people into discomfort is really a lot of stuff that you hear about. This is my personal opinion, obviously, but a lot of stuff, cliche stuff that you hear, like fear of failure and things like
Yeah.
that. They don't want to put themselves in a situation where they might look silly or whatever. And I know one of the things that I do whenever I'm asked for a new opportunity, or asked to participate in something that I may not have experience in, or I may not be necessarily comfortable with. I do think about what can I get out of this? What do I want to get out of this? And what do I want to learn? Things like that. And then I also communicate clearly to the person that may be giving me that opportunity that, hey, this is outside my comfort zone. This is not something that I've done before. So I
Ah,
just want you to be aware that there's going to be, there may be a misstep or two, and I hope that I can count on you for guidance, as I'm growing in this, new experience. So
that's such a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up because it kind of circles back to that notion of awareness, right? So
yep,
you are aware of your own discomfort, but you're also making the other person who could help you with that discomfort aware of your discomfort. So it's like it's a kind of next level emotional intelligence where it's like, yeah, I can internally be uncomfortable, but I'm going to shy away from showing that discomfort, like you said, because I don't want to look like an a-hole that I don't know what I'm doing or whatever. But actually it could settle you a little bit into that discomfort if you tell the person, like, yeah, by the way, I'm new here. Like, I don't, I don't know what's happening, or I am, very uncomfortable in the scenario, or just moderately uncomfortable in this situation, whatever it is. And that can help that person to help you, right? So it's like sitting
correct.
in your own discomfort by yourself is one thing. You can be aware of that and ask yourself that, but it's a really good point that you're bringing up to make the other person aware and be vocal about your discomfort. Yeah, that can really help. I think, kind of power you through the discomfort to that growth. That's a good idea. I like that. I like that because yeah, it just kind of circles back to awareness. You make yourself aware, and then the other person aware. So that's pretty good. I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And
Yep.
that works professionally. I'm focused a little bit more, I guess, professionally, when I'm thinking about the discomfort of growth, but that works personally too. I mean, I know I've been in
Sure.
situations where, I've told somebody, like, a good example would be a conversation I have with my dad on a regular basis where, I'll just tell him, like, hey, I'm hoping that we grow together in our relationship as father and son. But, I'm uncomfortable when tell me that you don't think you were a good dad.
Yeah.
Let's, we can talk through that, but I hope that, you're willing to grow with me, as we have that conversation too. So it works personally too, because I'll just say, I think my dad was a fantastic father, but
Right.
he argues with me all the time. So maybe kind
Yeah.
of a reverse what most people experience. Most people probably have, their parents think they did a good job, and, their kids are like, oh yeah, but you messed up here and here. I have the opposite problem with my dad. So, but
Right.
anyway.
Yeah. 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 I'll tell you right now, one of the things that I need to do better just recently is I haven't put myself in too many uncomfortable positions. I don't know that I've been shying away from them really. But you actually helped me with that considerably when you let me go to that to your company and present that problem solving class. You know, because that's a totally different environment I'm in. Not really sure what to expect. People that I guess a I don't want to say a class of people, that would be inappropriate. A demographic of people that I'm not used to with working with straight civilians, right? I've never done that before in
Right.
my entire working life. So that was really good that I was able to do that because yeah, I was not comfortable there with for the first few hours trying to figure out the dynamic there and who's going to be the wise ass and whatever. So I did have to be aware of that. And actually, you know, what kind of helps me with my not in a lot of different ways, but also kind of my own self-talk. But like when I was driving home afterwards, I would be like, okay, what did I do wrong there? Right. Or there was a moment there where I flubbed something and kind of talked through it literally like out loud, talk about it as if I was kind of working through it and try to recover the next day and say, okay, don't step on that landmine again. You kind of did that. Don't do that again. So that was helpful. But I think I do need to work on putting myself in some growth positions as well. I haven't done that in a minute since that class.
Well, that was just in December, so it wasn't that long ago. But I will
Sure.
say, now it may have been longer, but since before that opportunity you had, but I will say, you give a really good point, and that I think really focuses in on the growth part, and that is, talking yourself through what you could have done better, but then not beating yourself up about it.
Right.
That's part of the growth thing. You don't want to fall into a trap of oh my gosh, I'm so, and just kind of get into that negative self-talk where, man,
Yeah.
I really messed that up. I can't believe I messed that up. Man, you really have to move to the next level of conversation with yourself, which is, okay, how do I make sure I don't do that again? How do I make sure that I don't find myself and, put myself in that position again? And that's something I know you're aware of this. Obviously, we've been friends for a long time, and both professionally and personally. But I'm very fierce about my teams.
Right.
And that's, I've stepped on some landmines in my current role, being fierce with my team, and something that my leader, my plant manager, has had conversations with me about, and something that I'm working on now, which I've worked on this my whole life, being too um, you know sometimes getting a little over the top when I feel like my team isn't being treated well, or an
Yeah.
individual on my team is being treated unfairly. um, but one of the things that my plant manager currently has told me is, Ben, he said, you're right. He goes, but it's not enough to be right. You have to be right in the right way. And you have to
Right.
think about how you're going to interact with people, and how you're going to build bridges and relationships, and not tear those down, even when they're the ones that are 100% in the wrong. You don't want to put yourself. So that's kind of a
Right.
personal journey, or kind of, I guess, personal and professional growth that I'm in right now. And there's some discomfort there. When I'm sitting with my plant manager and having a conversation about how I interacted with the quality group, or how I interacted with the maintenance manager, that's uncomfortable for me, because I don't like not being the best at everything, and not, I don't like making
Yeah.
mistakes. But
Yeah.
I acknowledge, and this is something that, Stephen and I have talked about, is I acknowledge that I stepped in it here, and I tell him that I
Yeah.
acknowledge that I stepped in it. What would you do different moving forward? And then I try to listen to what he has to say, and then think about how that's going to work in with my personality. And I'm not just going to sit there and beat myself up about it. I'm going to say, okay, now, next time I run into this situation, what am I going to do? And that's something that was helpful for me too. And again, the growth piece. I went into the shift handoff yesterday, and I won't go into the big long story, but I knew that I was going to make some comments that would probably get some negative comments back from a member of a different department. And sure enough, they were there. But because conversations that Stephen and I have had, when they did make their comments, which they did exactly what I thought they were going to say, or something similar,
Right.
I was mentally prepared to not jump over the top of them, and really challenge them in front of the group, and
Right.
damage things. And so I think that was a positive thing. I mean,
Yeah.
um, and that was where, so I grew, because I didn't say, oh my gosh, I'm just gonna, I let myself think about, okay, I've had these conversations with Steven. Um, that was uncomfortable for me. How am I gonna make sure I don't do that again? And then I really talked myself into, or really worked through in my head,
Hmm.
how the meeting was going to go before I walked into that environment. And that was, so hopefully I'll continue to do that moving forward. And I mean, there's a time and place to get serious with people and direct with people, but
Sure.
just kind of talking through how that's, in your head, how that meeting or how that conversation is going to go, um, can really set you up for success too. At least for me, because I was successful in that meeting that I had yesterday. So
Yeah, sure. So yeah, for sure. It sounds like there was some good growth there, and it sounds like you did that. What would next level you tell you to do to kind of keep going through this is instead of telling you something, it's like, well, what did you learn through it, right? That would
right,
the next let Ben after the meeting would have asked Ben before the meeting, hey, what did you learn from this, and what's going to happen next? It's like, oh, okay, this is what I learned that keeps you going through that discomfort and that growth. So yeah, that's really good. A good example. So, it was a pleasure talking to you about this. I'm glad we finally got to connect on this one. It was a good topic of discussion because I think you and I both have a lot of experience in growth, and how it can be uncomfortable. And it sounds like we hit some good points in, and I really want to kind of drill down the most on this awareness. Like it really popped up a couple of times in our conversation about being self-aware and then making the other person that is kind of maybe leading you through that growth aware of your discomfort that can help you tremendously to um, settle in a little bit and make your path through your growth. So yeah,
yeah, I agree.
um, well, I hope we get to do this again. I really do. So
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it. You have a couple in there with another couple other ones with like leading difficult people and
yeah,
or some along those lines. I don't have them all memorized, but it was something along those lines, and I'd be more than interested in chatting about that too. Because in my well, I always, but anyway, in my leadership journey, I've definitely had a lot of, from a civilian perspective, military perspective, there's a lot of things out there that I've learned on how to manage difficult people and things like that. So that's another one that I'd be interested in doing too. So,
well, I look forward to it. So we're gonna have to put one in plan. So I appreciate you talking with me.
all right. Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it also.
All right, man. I'll catch you later.
Yep. Talk to you later.